I'm life and confidence coach Dianna Leeder, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. Hi everyone, happy International Women's Day. Dr. Cora Pettipas has just published her first book that became an international bestseller within hours. After you hear what she has to say about women and money, you'll see why. I'm Dianna Leeder, host of the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast. I'm an intuitive life and confidence coach and an energy healer who helps people get what they want by finding their voice. I'm also the proud lead author of the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life book series on Amazon, including the award-winning editions Powerful Healer Spiritual Stories and Transcendent Men Real Stories. Cora and I intentionally chose to publish this podcast today in honor of International Women's Day. As many of you know, my career has been spent empowering women to honor themselves, which is the new self-care, by the way, and maintain their rightful role as feminine architects beside their masculine counterparts. We've made so many gains, but there are still so many left to achieve. On this special day of acknowledgement of our strides, Cora and I will be talking about using our voices and wealth management. While it's important to acknowledge those who are not currently in a position to easily engage in traditional financial management strategies, Cora's book, Compass Star, shows us a path to self-expression to help fund our passions. Dr. Cora Pettipas is a highly accomplished global financial expert and thought leader with over 20 years of experience in the financial industry, who is passionate about client success using strategies that build personal wealth. Cora currently works for an international bank in wealth, leading financial planning strategy and related digital tools globally, helping clients navigate the complexities of financial planning. She is known for her work in financial innovation and has been recognized with numerous international awards. So welcome to the Roadshow, Cora, and thank you so much for joining me on the show. I've really been looking forward to it, and congratulations on this, wait a minute, I'll put it in here, this amazing book, this beautiful book.
Oh, thank you, Dianna. Thank you. It is such an honor to be here, and it's such an honor to be with you today, honestly. Thank you for having me. I adore your work and all the work that you've done with Women in Voices and Stand By Me program. So it's an honor to kind of merge these ideas together on Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. So let's just jump right into it. Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's just do it. What is it that got you interested in wealth management or money?
I got interested in wealth management and money indirectly because I grew up from humble roots and grew up in the 80s when there was a cost of living crisis back then as well. And, people, not just my family, but the families around me were struggling with mortgages and everything. And then when I went out into the world, I made some dumb mistakes. I made some really dumb mistakes, actually, with my education. I got a lot of student loans, and then I came out and I was highly in debt, and I really struggled in my early 20s. I remember a pivotal time for me when I was talking to my loan officer for my student loans, and I was doing $150 a month in loan payments, and I was making $10 an hour at the time, right? And that's all I could afford, and that seemed like a lot of money at the time. And then we were talking, and it wasn't even covering the interest payments on the loan. So the loan was essentially getting bigger as I paid it. And I was missing one loan because I had 4 loans, just the way the student loan program was at the time, right? You got a loan every time. So I had like 4 or 5 loans. And I just remember how stupid I felt. You know, I worked so hard in the school system to like get good grades and to get scholarships and to do well. And then I was just really, really struggling with the money part. And I was like, I fell on the floor crying. I was, I don't know, 21 at the time. I write about it in my book. And I was just like, I just need to change. This needs to change. So I just promised myself I would tackle it. And yeah, I was $40,000 in debt at the time, and I was just a newbie with money. But that time, and I didn't realize that it became a life dedication for me to help other people do that after I did it. But it's something I'm super passionate about. Money is freedom. Money is power. I think everyone should have an abundant life, and should have the freedom of lifestyle design that comes with money, even if it comes in incremental steps in the beginning, right? It might be a small thing that you can give yourself freedom with, and then slowly more decisions come. Or it can come fast. With some clients, I've seen it come really fast, right? For me, it wasn't fast. For me, it was about a 5-year turnaround, and until I got to a point where I was really in control and really proactive with my money, and that my life completely changed, especially when I got out of debt. Once you get out of debt, it's a game changer. Then you can start really designing your life and your goals, and start, really enjoying yourself in a lot more way, without having to worry about money and how that erodes your relationships.
Mhm. Wow. So did you say 4 years took you?
I think no, I said 5.
Five?
It was about 5 to 6.
Okay. Wow. You did it though.
I
Congrats.
did it. Yeah, it took it like I talk about it in my book, but like I used to hand wash my laundry, and like I didn't get coffees or anything, and I'd take like $20, and like that would be the week's worth of groceries, right? So I was a vegetarian by need. So like I would fry up lentils, and I would have eggs and broccoli. At the time, those were the cheaper things to have, and then pasta sauce. So that was kind of my diet at the time, right? But I mean, it got much better. I remember the first time I was able to afford strawberries. I was like very, very excited. My boyfriend at the time, mocks me for it now, because I was like I was getting emotional in, in the checkout. He always kind of makes fun of me for that now, so I probably should be bringing it up now because it's kind of embarrassing. But like, it just, once you have that freedom, right? Like you just never take it for granted again, and it's really why I get up in the morning and like to drive this idea of abundance for everybody. And I work with wealthy people too, of course, right? And getting wealthy people more wealthy. But I really do believe anyone can be wealthy and have elements of wealth. And that's why Compass Star doesn't talk about wealth as one thing, as just money in your bank account, because that's really, really one thing, right? Like, so I have 4 elements of wealth in a compass, right? So passion being one of them, right? Like what gets you up in the morning? So that goes from like being afraid and doing should do's in the daytime. Like, what do I have? Like, what am I what are my expectations, I guess, is the best way of putting it, to doing what you want to do. So like, as you go from that fear to love, you can go from the should do's to the want to do's, right? I'm not talking about want to do's like luxury vacations all the time, but like having time to take your kid to swimming, for instance, having the family time, doing a career you want to do, doing that kind of thing. And then the second element of wealth is abundance, and that's more traditionally material abundance, right? So that's going from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of plenty. And it's well documented that works really well. It's like glass half empty versus glass half full. Both are true, but which do you want to go? And that's the lens you look at life with, right? And they teach the theory of scarcity in certain elements in sales. Because in sales, if you're going to be a good salesperson, you have to believe that there's people out there who need and want your product, right? So it is a really important aspect, not just if you're a salesperson, and then it's fine for that, but also in all elements of your life. The third is time, and time goes from chaos to flow. Flow is a psychological concept. I'm sure you've probably heard of it, right? Like
Mhm.
Csikszentmihalyi, I think, first
Love
developed it. But
flow.
yeah, flow is amazing, right? When you lose sense of time, and I caution the book, like, because elements of flow can also be addiction, right? So you don't want to have like addictive flow. So I guess the litmus test between flow in a healthy sense and flow in an unhealthy sense, and I'm sure you have lots of opinions on this too, is if it energizes you or if it drains you. If it
Mhm.
drains you and drains your life energy or your health or whatever, it's probably an addiction. Not that I'm a medical doctor, but if it energizes you and is something that excites you, then it's probably positive flow. And the last one, of course, is the fourth one is health. So that's going from inertia to wellness. So inertia is just like, I guess, lack of movement, lack of movement in your life. And when I talk about health, it's not just your own physical health, which is very, very important. In fact, we've seen, actually my employer, HSBC, has done some great studies in quality of life about how physical fitness actually affects your money mindset, like your mental health and your money flow, right? It's actually all interlinked: mind, body, money. But it's also in terms of community, right? And family. Like if you live in a healthy community, if you live in an abundant community, I mean, that has benefits for everybody, right? So
Yeah.
I look at health as a greater scope. It could be as far as the world or just as individuals, as the body.
Right. Right. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just answered my next 3 questions, which is
Oops.
just awesome.
Did I get too far ahead of
It's
you?
all good. I want you, you're just, yeah, you're just ahead of me. That's all. Okay. So, okay. So we've talked about what wealth is, right? In terms of what you have in your book. And we've talked about what the different pieces of your proposed plan are, which are awesome. And what that brings up for me is how we don't always use our voices with our money. We don't. Some of us do, but we can go. And I'm kind of going back to your concept about flow here because it kind of resonated for me. So flow for me and thinking about money would be right here where I know where my money is going and I've made choices about what that is, what all those different things are. Wherever I choose to put my money is where it will go. I watch out for things that are easy catches for spending that I don't really want to spend my money on. So, do I want to pay interest in something? These are just examples. Do I want to pay interest, on something? Probably not, because then, as you were talking about with your student loans, that simply increases the amount of money that you owe anyway. So, things like that. So, making those choices. Um, so, we can either, when we are voiceless, and this is from, I mean, the countless women that I have worked with over the years, where it comes down to with money is that we can either be in that middle state of flow, or we can go over here and ignore it. Oh no, I'm gonna let my partner look after that, or it'll figure itself out.
And they
You
might
know,
be good at it and they might be bad at it, or they
they
might get hit
might.
by a bus, right?
That's
Like
that's true. Well, let's hope not the latter.
the
But the
latter.
other side is how they go kind of crazy about it. And I use that term very loosely. That, it's not, there's no relaxation in it, there's no understanding of the power of the flow that happens right in the middle of that. So when we're happy about our choices and we're making choices that matter to us, I think you said something about, you're going swimming with your daughter, or taking your daughter swimming, or whatever, whatever it is. That's a choice. And that's a good choice because it makes you feel good and it's coming from inside of you. So, one of the things that we experience, of course, and you and I have talked a bit about this too, which is why we wanted to do the podcast, is that when we are not fully using our voice, we are showing up in one of those 2 ways, and we're not showing up right in the very middle, which is the place of pure empowerment.
Your empowerment, I love that. Yeah,
So,
no, that makes a
so
lot of sense.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think it does for sure. But my question is, how do you work with people when they come into you, who are on either side of that flow?
Well, um, in general, it tends to be the male, and still the male who's the dominant vocal person. Sometimes it's the woman who, and this is in general, right? My household is flipped, of course, and you have to know what works for you. And it's okay to have a dominant person involved, and there usually is, because we tend to, delegate our tasks as an economic unit. But the other person needs to know what's going on and needs to hold it. The whole point of doing the compass star is that it's when you do your money management, before you even do it, you need to know the so what. So you have to kind of step back and like, well, what's important for me? Because in corporate finance, it's easy. We're just trying to increase shareholder equity and profit. Easy, right? For clients or for just us as individuals, what we consider important in our life and what we consider a value is different. So we need to know what's valuable to us, right? Like, if you might have a partner who wants to start a restaurant and that's their dream, and you were like, oh, that's a nightmare, you're going to be working nights, right? So like it's someone's dream is someone else's nightmare, so it's highly subjective, and that's what makes money management fun. So it's in terms of knowing what's valuable to you and holding that focus. And once you have that focus, that's great, but then you need your voice. You need your voice to be able to say yes to some things and no to other things. And you have to say no to a lot. And I go into my book a lot about it. It's what you have to say no to is the waste. And what it tends to be the waste is the socially imposed expectations on you. Now, you might be fully aligned, like socially at your age and economic class and everything, you're supposed to have a Lamborghini. You're like, I really want a Lamborghini. I love Lamborghinis. That would be amazing. I just want to get one of those. And you have the money to do it, great. But if you're being imposed upon to get a Lamborghini, or like in my book, I go into like we were not forced, we were pressured to buy a house in a certain neighborhood at a certain age once we had our baby, right? Buy a certain vehicle once we had the baby. We had a lot that came out after we had the baby. That was the big, I think, lifestyle thing where most of the shoulds came from. But once you have those shoulds, like, is that really what I want? Or do I want something else? And just being focused enough to know that, and then I guess empowered enough, as you put it, to say, no, that's great. That's great for you. I'm glad you like to ski in the Alps. I'm glad you like Lamborghinis. I want this. I want this more. And the lower you are in the wealth, especially monetary wealth, you have to make those trade-offs, I guess you call them. But as you get wealthier over time, you don't have to make them anymore. Maybe because you don't care about the stuff that people are telling you you need, or I don't know what it is, but I've seen it in clients, I've seen it in myself. You just don't care, right? You do what you do, you don't bother anybody, and you live your best life, right? And you wish that on others. So it's really about having that, like, once you know, and that's what my book kind of guides people to help them know, because sometimes they don't always know. And then being able to vocalize that and just like, that's lovely that you want that. That's lovely you think I should have that, but no thanks, right?
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I have to say that that's the cornerstone of a lot of my work. So money is just one part
One
of,
part.
the things that we need to understand about ourselves and what's important to us. So when we don't give, as lots of voice challenged women don't, when we don't take the time to go inside and separate ourselves from what I call the human muck, which is where all the, all the influences come, all the expectations come. So like your community you were talking about, when you had your first child. So when we get that, we need to separate ourselves, okay, yep, that's happening out there, but this is happening in here, this is coming from my heart space. This is what I know I need.
Right.
And I want and I desire, right? So that piece is, for me, it's not just about money, of course, it's about everything in our life. But money is that big one, that big one that's scary, can be very scary for women. Most women, I won't say all women, of course, but it's just that scary element. Oh yeah, I can do this piece, but that one, I don't know. So
It doesn't
going
have
back
to
to,
be though.
no, it
Money,
doesn't.
money is easier. Money is easier than motherhood. It just is.
Okay, can I quote you on that? Because I love
Yes.
that.
It's funny because like when I started out in money, and I was luckily when I got serious about money, I was 21. I had nothing at the time, but like I got serious about it, and that was the start, right? But it's your baby is born and you're not a very good parent. Like if you came up with the teenager problems, you wouldn't be able to deal with them, right? But you know what to do with the baby and you learn with the baby, right? It's the same with you and your money. If you can kind of learn to flow with your money, a lot of it is documenting what you're doing. You would believe, and I've had very, very rich clients. If they don't know where their money is going, I even had a client making 2 million a year who was in cash flow negative because people think, oh, if I make a lot of money, things get better. They don't always because it's money is energy. So it's sometimes it's like adding gasoline to a fire because it's power. Having money is power, right? So if it's going the wrong way or if things are going badly, they can actually go more badly, right? And money is a facilitator. So if in a way, if you start off with nothing or whatever and you grow with your habits, you're actually kind of in a better off place than starting with a lot of money where everything is kind of chaotic and you have debts and you really don't know if you're coming or going and you have family with expectations. So whether you're starting or you're starting again, the small habits make a difference. And what I liked what you said, and we talked about it earlier, about like being mindful about what you're spending on and such. The second section of my book goes into budgeting. Budgeting is very important, and it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be, once you set it up, I promise you'll feel so empowered. You'll know where things are going because what we think and I'm guilty of this myself, what we think we're spending our money on and where our money is going and where it's actually going are different. Because our society is set up to separate us from our money. It just is, right? Like it's businesses are very
Another
good.
quote. I'm sorry, another quote. That was a good one. Yeah.
Everything is electronic now, right? So unless you're not forking over like, 5 pounds or $5 for the eggs and then, $10 to the milkman. We're not doing that anymore. It's electronic. And that's why people get in trouble with subscriptions now. Unless you look at what's going on with your money, you don't actually know what it's doing. So there's micro habits and macro habits. Micro habits are the daily, how your money is flowing daily. And you don't want to hoard it either. Like you don't want to hoard your money. You don't want to overspend it. You want that beautiful balance, like you were talking about, and the voice to communicate that balance to everyone around you who expects things, children, spouses, whoever happens to be in your life, right? But then there's the macro things, and that's where people can get in huge trouble, especially if they're wealthier, actually. I've seen people roll into near retirement doing beautifully, and then they find that dream house that was $500,000 at the time, 10 years ago, so $1 million. And then they can blow it, or they find that Mexico timeshare or whatever it happens to be. So actually, when you get wealthier, it's like it's kind of like you don't want to be stupid in a way. Like you just want to be mindful. And there's times in your life where you'll be more vulnerable than others, and you got to be more careful. If you've just had a divorce, if you've had a death in your life, especially of somebody, a loved one, wait 6 months. Don't do anything. It's like I've worked with clients who have been grieved, and it's almost like working with somebody who's drunk. They're not operating at a level where they can make sober decisions.
And my guess is that that's simply because they can't focus on anything
Oh
but their
yeah, no, it's
grief.
because they're hurting. It's like
Yeah.
it's totally natural, right? But
Yeah.
because and that's about knowing yourself and then communicating that to anyone, right? Like so if you had a loved one who just died, like a spouse, not only are you taking over the full responsibility of the money, but you want to just wait, just let things settle, let yourself process before you make any major decisions, right? Like the rule of thumb is 6 months, but of course different for everybody.
So I'll just throw this in here for a little bit of fun. We bought one of those one of those Mexico timeshares. And here's the motivation. So remember this, listeners, please, because this is really lousy money management. The motivation was that we got to the hotel that we had actually booked, and it was not what we liked. It was not up to our standards. It was really kind of creepy. It wasn't, so we so we went down the beach looking, and one of these guys came out with a flag, come on in and you can check this one out. And so we did, and it was like, oh well, like we like to come here. So we did about maybe half an hour's worth of talking back and forth, and like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Right. Have we used it? Have we got our money out of it? Absolutely not.
Oh, and I guess timeshares are like, I'm picking on timeshares. They're not bad for everybody, right? But when you go into, there's a couple of things you could read, and I think we've all had those experiences of bad choices, right? Like, just learn from them, right? So Maybe
Mhm.
if you sleep on it overnight, maybe if you look at the details, maybe if you look at other hotels in the area. And it's so funny because when we're on vacations, we're very emotional because like we work so hard for it. And we get there, we just want to have fun, we just want to have a perfect time, which is great.
Mhm.
But even the motivations behind that, right? Like what was it about the hotel that you really hated versus the hotel that you really liked and you thought you were buying, right? Like something as simple as that, because actually the blog I'm putting out uh today, it was about vacations, right? Because a lot of people are looking at doing vacations and can't necessarily afford it at the moment. So it's like, well, what were in your perfect vacations was there that like, that really made it valuable? So like for me, I channeled my like my inner child kind of thing, but it was like having fires in the evening, those campfires, and having family around us, and we play Monopoly all night, and just little things like that, right? Baking cookies, like just all like what elements of the vacation that
Today.
you absolutely love
Mhm.
can you bring in for maybe a non-luxury price? Now, if you can afford a luxury vacation, you want to take one, take one. No guilt. Don't even worry about it, right? But if you're because of the cost of living crisis and because again we're back to where we were in the 80s where a lot of people are feeling stretched. In fact, there was a study in the UK that came out um, by HSBC, so I'm so familiar with it, that people who make £100,000 or more, only 10% of them feel wealthy. Only 10%. Now that makes up 4% of the working population, the top 4% in the UK. 100,000 pounds is about maybe 180,000 Canadian dollars ish, 190. So you can see that people are feeling stretched, and it's not just, like, so it depending on where you are, and if you're feeling bad off right now, it's probably not you. I think
Mhm.
most people are feeling stretched. I know for us personally, and I was thinking of writing a blog on this, our electric bill has gone up more than double. Our
Wow.
food bill has gone double in the last 5, 6 years, right? I mean, it's fine to look at the statistics, but you got to look at your own bills, right? Like
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what's going, and that's another thing about finding your voice and your inner voice, especially your empowerment. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It doesn't. Like it really, you need to stay in your own lane. What's going on with your bills and your choices, and where do you need to make your concessions if you do, right? And
Yeah,
if you're on the
absolutely.
wealthier end of the scale in terms of monetary, there'll be different concessions, but there's still concessions. Like the struggle is as real for rich people as it is for maybe people who are more middle class or working class, right? If you
Yeah.
still, kind of subscribe to that class system.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's a lot for people, oh, especially now. It is a lot for people for sure. Things have changed incredibly in Canada too. Things have increased, prices have increased on pretty much everything. So yeah, a lot of people are struggling for sure, which was really part of why I wanted to do this with you because there are things that we can all learn, but it's in my mind when you go back into yourself and you make your choices based on what you know is true for you and what is right for you. Well, you may feel like you deserve to have $1 million job. Well, but do you have that job today? No. So
And
you work
I
with
talk
what you
about that in my
have.
book. Everyone deserves it. I really feel like everyone
Yeah.
deserves it. It was like that movie. I don't know. He couldn't lie, and then he like no one in the movie lied, and then he said, "Oh, everyone gets a mansion in heaven." Like, yeah, I mean, why not? Everyone gets a mansion. But I mean, I really believe everyone truly has the potential, and where you are now isn't indicative unless you get stuck there of where you're going to be. And I mean, we've all been in stuck places, I think. I know I have. I've written,
Yeah.
I wrote about it. I dedicated a career to it. And in my book, it talks about pragmatic things to do to get yourself from where you are to where you're going. In the book, I use just a one income scenario because the reason why I use one income, if you have multiple incomes or two incomes, whatever you happen to have, it's actually easier, right? So if you can do it on one modest income, you can do it on a bigger income. It's just easier, right? You can just get there faster.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So when we actually make those choices, and this is really exciting, I think, an exciting piece of this, I think it will be for a lot of people, when we realize that we get to, we check in with ourselves. We know what's important to us. And we know, like it's important to me that I pay my mortgage. So I've got to budget money for that. I have to budget money for this and that and the other thing. We also get to budget for the things that feel good to us, that they feel good. Having a home feels pretty good too. But the things that are more, that we may not normally choose, like putting money aside that we may donate to a charity every year at Christmas, or um, your kids' college fund. Of course, things like that are super important, right? So it's really kind of nice to be able to understand that it's not simply just get your bills paid and be done and spend everything else, to do this in a way that is intentional. These are the things that are really super important to me and I don't want to live without. So I'm going to set it up, even if I only put, $10 a month in that particular category. I'm putting that $10 in there. I think that there's a lot of um, inner power that comes out with that. And then it really does, you can just take that, like that's yours, that's your circle, that's how you're making your life on the outside from the inside. So yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that people can learn that.
That's an amazing point you brought up. Even just starting, there's just such power to starting something. And one of the best things you can do long term, people, our whole industry, financial services says it, but I don't know if people really hear it. And the people who need to do it most don't. Investing, need to start investing. And I'm not talking about like Bitcoins or just unregulated, more phrase stuff. I'm talking about just like meat and potatoes investing in stocks and bonds and ETFs and mutual funds and everything like that. It's really, really important. And even if you put away, because now it's more democratized, you can put away 10 pounds. I'm sorry, I speak in pounds because I'm in London. 10 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds. If you put away $100 to something, we'll go back to Canadian, $100 a month to something, that gets you started. That opens a door to opportunity and abundance for you, because once you start doing that, you can start putting more away. It's so funny because once you start focusing on that, and that's paying yourself first, and you got to pay yourself first in money, and you got to pay yourself first in time. I talk about this in my book too a lot, like doing something for an hour a day, an hour that's just yours. Because if you pamper yourself with that kind of just space, then you won't feel like you need to do retail therapy. The more happy you get, the more you won't feel like you need to go out and buy clothes or impulse buys or buy a pick-me-up, whatever it happens to be for you, right? Like, and then that waste spending goes out. So I talk about it in my book a bit. I was a weather spender. So like I would have a bump in February, and I've been tracking because I'm a big believer in do as you say, not as so I do what I preach, right? So February I'd have a bump in spending in Canada, and then July again. So February I was depressed because it was winter. I figured it out later. And then July I was jubilant because we had nice weather. So it's
Yeah.
like
So yeah, but isn't that true? I mean, we gravitate toward things that we think are comfort when we are excited and when we are not so excited, when we're feeling down. So, but that's part of that whole inner plan too. We can decide what it is that makes us feel good. We can
yeah.
decide, does it, yeah, sure, it feels nice to go buy a new shirt, but don't do it because you're feeling like crap. you know, do it because you need it, or even if you want it and you have the funds, then yeah, that's okay. But that is part of that bigger thing, it's looking inside, and I know I'm digging at this, but from the inside out, one of those things is about money. One is about managing your ups and downs, your emotional ups and downs. So, and
And
those
there's
two
two
in
sides
that
of the
respect
coin
go
to
together.
this. If you're at a point in your life, and the audience could be anywhere, right? Where you're really having trouble month to month to make ends meet. Buying a shirt is a bad idea because and this is where full wealth comes in, because you need to allocate that money to basic needs, the energy bill, the food, or whatever, right? Or you just don't want to go further in debt. If you're wealthier, then buying the shirt might be a bad idea because you have to take the time out to go and shop. You have to bring it home. You have to care for it. You have to stick it in your closet. You have to manage it, and then you have to figure out how to get rid of it. So there's more resources that are utilized than, because that's why time is a wealth too. And just you don't want to crowd your space more than what's comfortable as well. So even if you can afford to buy 2 shirts every day forever, you're just going to have a cluttered house of shirts.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I have thought about that by the time you get to be an older individual, a lot of that stuff just falls off the wayside. You know, I have no interest, very little interest in shopping anymore. I used to shop like a fiend, but not my
And,
thing anymore. Just
and there's
changes.
nothing wrong with shopping. If you like shopping, shop,
Yeah,
right? Like you
yeah,
can
yeah.
afford it, you have the time, do it. But I have a little kind of a scarf problem. I do like my scarves.
This
I
is a
don't know.
new scarf for today, right?
This is
We
a new
mentioned that
scarf
before
for
we
my
started to
husband.
record. Yeah, Cora bought a new scarf for today and it's beautiful. You better show us more because we can only see a little bit.
It's from the Painted Hall in Greenwich. So that's actually that's where I wrote a lot of my book, is in the Painted Hall. So it's just
Nice.
it's near one of our dear friends lives, and it's just a beautiful space. So I go in there, and I used to write on Sundays with a friend, right? So it's just a place that I kind of have just a soul affinity with. And yeah, so I got a scarf. But you might have a spending problem in an area, and I'm picking on myself with scarves. If you don't know how many you have, I don't know how many scarves I have.
Oh, however, you would have to take the time to count them if you really needed to know. So, you know, what's the point? It's okay if you have more than you know. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's a question for you. What is the most important thing you've taught your daughter about personal finance?
I love that. There's 2 things I've done for her. And you know what? Every kid is different, and that's why money management, parenting are very similar. Um, so one of the things I did for her, we started very, very early, and it nipped me on the butt a couple times, but we would go into a store. I didn't take her shopping much because I'm just personally don't believe you take a kid to leisure shop. They need to be in a playground or whatever. I don't think it's fun for the kid, and I think it's better for them to be out running and playing with their friends, right? So that's never really took her shopping unless I really had to. When I did take her, I'd let her pick out one thing, anything she wanted but one thing. I wanted her to learn how to prioritize. So sometimes it was a stick of gum, sometimes it was a Barbie. It was different. Sometimes it was a shirt. One time it was a princess dress, right? Candy bars came up a lot because she especially when she was little, she didn't understand the pricing or anything, but it was what she valued. And it was really, really interesting. One time she picked out from Walmart, she picked out a Barbie carriage with the Barbie horses with the Barbie on it. I think it was like near $100. But I bit my tongue, I kept my commitment, right? I was like, you picked out one thing, this is the one thing you picked out. I bought it. But so that was very important. And now as she's a teenager, it seems to really she's able to prioritize very well, which is kind of the point I wanted for her, right? Like, what is it you want? Maybe you can have everything, but what is the one thing? The other thing I did with her is we saved money for her regularly, right? So, and when she was 9, I started getting her to invest. So I sat down with her, went through the journey, because legally they can't invest until they're 18, right? So it's in my account, but it's her money, right? So it was 100 a month, £100 a month. So we went in and we looked at it and we went through the process, and now she has a significant amount in there, right? So she's got a little nest egg, because I think investing is really, really scary if you haven't done it before and you just start, right? Like and that's why starting as early as you can, to start investing, and small increments if you can. You don't want to like just be putting like $500,000 on one product, right? It's
Yeah.
very scary and very dangerous, right? So like you want to learn a bit at a time, and then go. And there's other aspects of wealth building that are really important, but that's the one that most people have trouble with. So that's kind of why I
Right.
focused in on it with her.
Right. Well, and what's interesting about that is that, you know, yes, to be building what you have is really important, It's also important when you're thinking about what you value. It's also important to choose places to make your money, to build on that money that you are resonant with, So if you are, if you're really in that place where the planet needs some help here, then maybe you're not going to invest in an oil company or, if I can say that on my podcast, I guess I can. You
No,
get
there's
you
lots
get
of
to make those choices that resonate with you, which again comes back to considering what is important to you.
There's a saying, I didn't come up with it, but you can vote with your dollars, right? So which businesses you patron. We're really big here, like we live in Greenwich in London, and we try to patron the local businesses. Really, really important for us, right? So, and that's us voting with our dollars, right? We want to make sure that the community is thriving and such. So that's, but you can do that with your investments. You can do that, and I mean, it's not for me to say what people think are right or wrong, and
Yep.
my answer probably is quite insignificant anyway. But you can do that based on your values, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same with donating. You mentioned donating things, and there's nothing more fun than being able to donate your money. But before you do those things, though, make sure you have a solid, like, put your own oxygen mask on first, right? So, like, make sure you have like an emergency fund and yourself settle before you start donating. Because if you start with the wealth planning journey, you will get to a point where you'll be able to donate, and you'll be in that situation. But if you're not right away, don't beat up on yourself, right? Or donate small amounts.
Absolutely. So, what is your wildest hope for women and money?
I would love everyone to never worry about it, to never have anxiety about money. Do you know most divorces aren't infidelity? Infidelity is like fourth or fifth on the list. It's money problems. Like, how sad is that the person we decide to love and spend the most of life with, um, it's so significant anxiety. One thing I've seen in like working in finance is really rich families, and the matriarch or the patriarch dies, and the expectations of the funding distribution wasn't the way they thought, and people would fight, and sisters would never talk to each other again, and family would never talk to each other again. It's like, so as you can tell, I value relationships, but if you value relationships, it would be nice that money supports all your life decisions and eventually becomes a thing. That's what I hope for all of them.
Love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you, Cora. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah,
It
well,
was lovely.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. That was great. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your expertise and all you know about finance, which, I mean, we've got one smart cookie here, guys. So, I'm really honored that she was here and would take the time to share what she knows with us. So,
Well, I'm honored by your work too. Your work is very inspiring. So, and
oh,
thank you for, giving space for this.
thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Roadshow people, thank you for being here. I'm honored that you took the time to sit and listen to us, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got something out of it. If you did, feel free to connect and let us know. Give us some feedback, and please remember to head to cravemorelife.com if you have any interest in programs or need any support with that voice of yours. So, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.